Story 1. I wasn't alone in the Appalachian Woods. I grew up in Western Virginia, in a town so small that most people only knew it because of the forests surrounding it. Miles and miles of untouched woods, thick trees, old trails that locals used but never talked about. People who don't live near places like that think the woods are peaceful, quiet, relaxing. They're wrong. The woods are quiet because everything inside them is listening. In October of 2014, I was 23 years old and working a seasonal job with a wildlife surveying crew. We weren't park rangers or law enforcement, just a small team contracted to track animal movement in the deeper parts of the Appalachian backwoods. Trail cameras, GPS markers, soil samples. Nothing exciting, or so I thought. That morning, I drove alone to my assigned drop point just after sunrise. The fog was heavy, hanging low between the trees like smoke that refused to lift. There was no cell service past the dirt road, and once I parked, the silence hit immediately. No birds, no wind, just stillness. I grabbed my pack and started down the trail I'd marked the day before. According to my GPS, the first camera was about 2 miles in. It should have taken me maybe 40 minutes to reach it. About 15 minutes into the hike, I noticed something that bothered me. Footprints. They weren't animal tracks, they were boot prints, deep, uneven, like someone was carrying weight. What didn't make sense was how fresh they were. The soil was damp from rain the night before, and the edges of the prints were sharp. Someone had walked this trail recently. That alone wasn't terrifying. Hunters passed through sometimes, locals too. But what made my stomach tighten was the direction. The prints were leading away from the road, deeper into the woods. I told myself not to overthink it and kept walking. Another 10 minutes passed, and the forest seemed to close in, trees thicker, underbrush heavier. The trail camera should have been visible by then, but it wasn't. I checked my GPS again. I was standing exactly where it said the camera was placed, but it was gone. The metal strap that held it to the tree was still there, cut clean through. No camera, no casing, just the strap dangling, slightly swaying even though there was no wind. That's when I heard the first sound, a single footstep behind me. I froze. I didn't turn around right away. I listened. My heart was pounding so loudly I was sure whoever or whatever was behind me could hear it. Then I heard another step, slow, careful, not an animal. I turned. There was no one there, just trees, shadows, fog drifting between trunks. I laughed nervously at myself, told myself it was paranoia, and reached for my radio. No signal, static only. I decided to head back toward the road and report the missing camera. That's when I realized the footprints were gone. Not covered, not faded, gone. The ground behind me was smooth, untouched, like no one had ever walked there. As I started back, I heard something again, but this time it wasn't footsteps. It was breathing, low, slow, too controlled to be an animal. It was coming from my left, somewhere off the trail. "Hello?" I called out, my voice cracking despite my effort to sound calm. "Wildlife survey, you're on private land." The breathing stopped. Then I heard my own voice. "Hello?" Same tone, same hesitation, but it came from deeper in the woods. My blood went cold. I backed away slowly, every instinct screaming at me to run, but I didn't. Running in dense woods can get you killed fast. Trip once and you're done. I kept walking backwards, eyes scanning the tree line. That's when I saw it. Something standing between the trees. It was tall, taller than any man I'd ever seen, but thin, unnaturally thin.
Its limbs were too long, bending slightly in ways arms and legs shouldn't. Its skin looked pale, almost gray, blending into the fog. It didn't move. It didn't blink. It just stood there, watching me. I couldn't see its face clearly, but I knew that it was looking directly at me. Then it smiled. Its mouth opened wider than a human mouth should, stretching unnaturally across its face, and it spoke, using my voice. "Hello?" That's when I ran. I didn't care about falling. I didn't care what direction I went. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs felt like they were going to give out. Behind me, I heard footsteps, not crashing, not chasing, keeping pace, always the same distance away. No matter how fast I ran, it stayed behind me, matching every step. When I finally broke through the tree line and saw my truck, the footsteps stopped instantly. I spun around. Nothing. No movement, no sound. I jumped into my truck, slammed the door, and locked it. I sat there for a long time, shaking, staring at the woods. Right before I drove away, I noticed something carved in the dirt near my driver's side door. A single word. Hello. I quit that job the same day. A week later, I found out 2 other cameras from that area had gone missing, and the night after that, I received a voicemail on my phone. No caller ID, just heavy breathing, and then my own voice whispering, "Hello."
Story 2. Something followed us for 3 nights in the national forest. I've spent most of my life outdoors, hunting with my father in Montana, fishing trips in Idaho, solo camping trips across Colorado and Wyoming. I'm not the kind of person who scares easily, and I don't believe in the paranormal, not the way people online talk about it. But there are things in the deep woods that don't fit into neat categories. And sometimes the most terrifying experiences don't come from something you see. They come from something that knows you're there and lets you know it's watching. This happened in the summer of 2018 in a remote section of a national forest in Northern California. I won't say exactly where, because even now, I don't want people trying to find that place. 3 of us went on that trip. Me, my friend Aaron, and his younger brother, Luke. The plan was simple. 3 nights of backcountry camping, miles away from established campsites. No cell service, no nearby trails, just us, the forest, and a river we planned to follow upstream. The first day was perfect. Clear sky, warm air, normal forest sounds, birds, insects, the occasional rustling of small animals. We hiked about 6 miles before finding a clearing near the river and set up camp. Nothing felt wrong. That night, we built a small fire and talked until it burned down to embers. Around midnight, we crawled into our tents. That's when the forest went silent. Not gradually, instantly. No insects, no wind, no water sounds, even though the river was less than 50 yards away. I remember lying in my sleeping bag, staring at the inside of my tent, thinking how unnatural the silence felt, like someone had hit a mute button on the world. Then we heard it. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, purposeful. They circled the campsite. Not random pacing, not animal movement. Someone or something was walking a wide loop around us. I unzipped my tent slightly and looked out. The fire was dead, just ash and blackened logs. The moonlight barely reached through the canopy, but I could see the outline of Aaron's tent across from mine. The footsteps stopped. Then I heard Luke whisper from his tent, "Do you guys hear that?" Before I could answer,
Something stepped on a branch. Crack. Close. Too close. Aaron whispered, "Don't say anything." We stayed still, barely breathing. After a minute, the footsteps continued, moving away this time, disappearing into the darkness. Eventually, the forest sounds slowly returned. We didn't sleep much after that. In the morning, we told ourselves it was probably a hiker who wandered too close, maybe someone curious, maybe someone lost. That explanation didn't hold up for long. Around our campsite, we found footprints. Bare footprints, large, deep, human-shaped but wrong somehow, longer than normal, with toes that looked stretched. No shoes, no socks. And they didn't just walk around the camp. They stopped near each tent, like whatever made them stood there, listening. We should have left that morning. Instead, we convinced ourselves it was a prank, some weird local messing with campers. We packed up and continued upriver. That was mistake number 2. The second night, we camped in a narrower section of forest, trees packed tightly together, limited visibility. As the sun went down, that uneasy feeling came back, the sense of being watched, of not being alone, even though we were miles from anyone else. We didn't make a fire that night. Around 2 a.m., Luke screamed. Not yelled, screamed. We bolted upright and ran to his tent. He was shaking, pale, barely able to speak. "There was someone outside. Someone right outside my tent." We checked the area. Nothing. No movement, no sound. Then we noticed something worse. Handprints. Pressed into the side of Luke's tent. Not smeared, not sliding. Perfectly placed. Fingers long, spread wide. Whatever was outside his tent had leaned in, watching him sleep. We stayed awake the rest of the night, sitting back to back with our knives out, like idiots in a horror movie. When morning came, we argued about leaving. Aaron wanted to stay one more night to prove to himself nothing was wrong. Against my better judgment, I agreed. That was the third night, the night that broke something in me. We didn't even make it to sleep. Just after dark, we heard it again. Footsteps. But this time, they didn't circle the camp. They walked straight towards us. Slow, unhurried. Each step deliberate. I could hear the weight behind them, the confidence. Whatever it wasn't afraid of us. The footsteps stopped just beyond the fire pit. Then we heard breathing. Deep, wet, controlled. And then it spoke. Not words. It mimicked. First, it sounded like Aaron coughing. Then it sounded like Luke calling my name. Perfectly. Wrong tone, wrong timing. Like it didn't quite understand how voices were supposed to work. Aaron stood up. I grabbed his arm. "Don't," I whispered. Something moved closer. Branches bent under weight. And then, in the firelight, we saw it. It was crouched low just beyond the edge of the light. Too tall to be human when it stood, but it didn't stand. It stayed hunched. Its arms dragged across the ground. Its face. I still can't describe it without feeling sick. The skin looked stretched too tightly, like it didn't belong on the skull underneath. Its eyes reflected the firelight, not blinking. And when it smiled, I realized it had been smiling the whole time, just waiting for us to notice. That's when Luke started crying. The thing tilted its head, curious, interested. And then it took one step closer. We ran.
We didn't pack. We didn't grab gear. We ran blindly through the woods, crashing through brush, falling, getting back up. Behind us, we heard it. Not running, following, letting us go just fast enough to keep hope alive. The footsteps stayed with us for hours. They only stopped when we reached the road at dawn. Weeks later, when we reported the incident, a ranger quietly told us something. People had gone missing in that area. Experienced hikers, hunters, people who knew the woods. Their campsites were found. Their gear was found. They were not. And sometimes other campers reported hearing their voices, calling from the trees.
Story 3. The last thing my brother recorded in the woods. Based on a true missing person case. My brother Evan was the kind of person who felt more comfortable in the woods than around people. He didn't hate society or anything dramatic like that. He just preferred quiet. Trees didn't interrupt you. Rivers didn't ask questions. Animals didn't pretend to care. In 2020, when the world shut down and everyone was locked inside, Evan did the opposite. He went deeper into the wilderness than he ever had before. He told us it was a solo backpacking trip, 2 weeks, somewhere in the Pacific Northwest, no established campgrounds, no trails marked on most maps. My parents hated the idea. I didn't love it either, but Evan had experience. He'd done solo trips before. He carried emergency gear, satellite GPS, extra food. And most importantly, he carried a small handheld audio recorder. Evan liked recording ambient sounds, wind through trees, water moving over rocks, sometimes his own thoughts, spoken quietly into the microphone at night. That recorder is the only reason we know what happened to him. Evan was reported missing 17 days after he left. Search teams found his campsite on day 4 of the operation. They found his pack, his tent, his boots. They did not find Evan. The recorder was discovered inside his tent. What's on it still hasn't been released publicly, but my family was allowed to hear it, and I wish I never had. Day 1. Recording begins. The first few recordings are normal. Evan describing the terrain, weather conditions, his plans for the next day. His voice sounds relaxed, happy even. He mentions feeling isolated in a good way. On the second night, he records again. The forest ambiance is loud, crickets, wind, distant water. Then Evan says something that didn't stand out at the time. There's someone else out here. He laughs after saying it. Probably another hiker. I heard footsteps earlier. Couldn't see anyone. He doesn't sound scared, just curious. That's the last normal recording. Day 4. The audio starts abruptly, like he turned the recorder on in a hurry. The forest is quiet, too quiet. Evan's breathing is louder than the environment. Okay, this is weird. There's a long pause. Then he whispers, "I've heard someone walking around my camp for the last hour." He explains that the footsteps don't follow a pattern. They don't get closer. They don't move away. They just circle. At one point, you can hear a branch snap in the background. Evan stops talking. The recorder captures his breathing. Then, a sound. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, close. Evan whispers, "I'm not alone." Day 8. This recording is harder to listen to. Evan sounds tired. His voice is hoarse. "I haven't slept." He says the footsteps return every night, always after dark, never during the day. He tried calling out once,
No response. But the next night, it copied me. There's silence after he says that. Then he continues, quieter. I heard my own voice, same words, same tone, from the trees. In the background, faintly, you can hear something else, breathing, not Evan's. Day 8. This is where the recordings become disturbing. Evan says he found footprints outside his tent, bare footprints. He describes them as wrong, too long, toes uneven. He says they stop right at the edge of his tent. He pauses for a long time before speaking again. I think it knows I'm here. Day 10. This recording is mostly silence. Then Evan speaks suddenly. It's watching me. There's panic in his voice now. He says he saw something standing between the trees at dusk, tall, unmoving, blending in with the forest. He couldn't see its face, but he knew it was facing him. Then he says something that made my mother start crying when we listened to it. It smiles when it notices me. Day 12. This recording should not exist. Evan was supposed to leave the woods by this day. Instead, the audio begins with him running. You can hear branches breaking, heavy breathing, panic. He whispers urgently, "It followed me today, in daylight." He says it stayed far back, just visible between trees, never rushing, never losing ground. He stopped hiking when it stopped. He moved when it moved, like a game, like it was hurting him. Day 13. This is the longest recording, and the worst. Evan is crying. He says he hears voices at night, not just his, our mother's voice, my voice, calling his name, begging him to come closer. He knows it's not us, but he says it sounds exactly like us. Then, faintly, in the background, you can hear it, a voice, too clear to be wind, too controlled to be imagination. It says his name. Day 14. The last recording. The last recording starts quietly. No forest sounds, no wind, no insects, just Evan breathing. Then he speaks, very calmly. It's right outside my tent. There's a pause. Then something touches the tent fabric, slowly dragging along it. You can hear the material stretch. Evan whispers, "It learned my voice." And then, from just outside the tent, you hear Evan's voice, perfectly. "It's okay. Come outside." Evan starts sobbing. He begs. He says he won't look. He says he won't run. He just wants it to leave. There's a long silence. Then the zipper of the tent opens from the outside. The recording ends there. Search teams believe Evan left the tent voluntarily. No signs of struggle, no blood, no tracks leading away. Just bare footprints starting at the tent, leading into the trees, and stopping, like he vanished mid-step. The recorder was found neatly placed on his sleeping bag, still recording, still capturing silence. Sometimes when my parents can't sleep, they swear they hear Evan's voice outside their house, calling, asking to be let in. I don't think it's him, and I don't think whatever took him stayed in the woods.